Mrs. Crawford slid Marcus Johnson's resume across the table like it was contaminated. "Mr. Johnson, let me be honest with you. We need someone who can commit fully, not someone who has to rush home to handle domestic situations." Marcus felt every eye in that room measuring him, judging him. A black single father in a cheap suit sitting in a building where people like him usually cleaned the floors. They didn't know that in exactly 4 hours, their entire company would be on its knees, and the only person who could save them was the man they'd just thrown away like garbage. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button. You don't want to miss what happens next. Marcus Johnson's hands wouldn't stop shaking. He stood outside Next Gen Technologies at 8:15 in the morning, 45 minutes early, because his mother had always told him that early was on time, and on time was late. He'd taken 2 buses to get here. His car had broken down 3 weeks ago, and he couldn't afford to fix it. The building rose up in front of him, like a wall of glass and steel. 32 floors of everything he'd been trying to reach for 7 months. 17 interviews, 16 rejections. And now this. His phone buzzed. A text from his neighbor, Mrs. Chen. "Lily is eating breakfast. She made you a card. Says it's for good luck. You've got this, Marcus." He smiled despite everything. Lily, his 7-year-old daughter. The only reason he got out of bed every morning. The only reason he kept walking into buildings like this one, knowing what was probably waiting for him inside. Marcus checked his reflection in the glass door. Navy blue suit, slightly too big because he'd lost weight from stress. White shirt pressed 3 times last night because the iron kept leaving marks. His father's tie, the only thing he had left from a man who'd died working 2 jobs to put food on the table. "You look fine," he told himself. "You're qualified. You know your stuff. Just get in there and show them." He pushed through the revolving door. The lobby hit him like a different world. Marble floors so polished he could see his reflection. A waterfall feature trickling down one wall. Young employees in expensive clothes moving past him without a second glance, talking about equity packages and quarterly projections. Marcus walked to the reception desk. The woman behind it was typing something on her computer. She didn't look up. "Excuse me," Marcus said. "I'm here for a 9 o'clock interview. Marcus Johnson." The receptionist's fingers paused. She looked up, and Marcus saw her eyes do that familiar sweep, starting at his shoes, moving up his off-brand suit, lingering on his face. "The software engineer position," she asked. "Senior database architect position, yes." She typed something, then gestured toward a seating area. "Someone will come get you. You can wait over there." "Thank you." Marcus sat down in a leather chair that probably cost more than his monthly rent. He picked up a business magazine from the coffee table, but the words swam in front of his eyes. His mind kept going back to this morning. Lily had been sitting at their tiny kitchen table, carefully drawing something with her crayons. Their apartment was small, just 2 bedrooms in a building that had seen better days, but Marcus had done his best to make it feel like home. Lily's artwork covered the refrigerator. Photos of the 2 of them lined the hallway. Her mother's absence was everywhere, but they'd learned to fill the silence together. "Daddy, what's an interview?" Lily had asked, not looking up from her drawing. "It's when you talk to people about a job. They ask you questions, and you answer them. Like a test." "Kind of, yeah." Lily had put down her crayon and looked at him with those big brown eyes. "You're going to pass, Daddy. You're the smartest person I know." Marcus had knelt down beside her. "What are you drawing, baby?" She'd held up the paper. It was a picture of him standing tall in front of a big building, wearing a cape like a superhero. At the bottom, in her careful 7-year-old handwriting, she'd written, "My daddy saves the day." His throat had tightened. "This is beautiful, Lily. It's for good luck. You can take it with you." He'd folded that drawing carefully and put it in his jacket pocket. It was there now, pressed against his heart. "Mr. Johnson." Marcus looked up. A woman in her 50s stood before him holding a tablet. She was tall with short gray hair and a face that looked like it hadn't smiled in years. "I'm Mrs. Crawford, the hiring manager. Please follow me." Marcus stood and followed her to the elevator. They rode up in silence, the numbers climbing past 10, 15, 20. Mrs. Crawford kept her eyes on her tablet, scrolling through something. The elevator opened onto a floor of glass-walled offices and open workstations. Employees glanced up as Marcus passed, then quickly looked away. He felt it again, that familiar sensation of being seen and dismissed in the same moment. Mrs. Crawford led him to a conference room where two other people were already waiting. A white man in his 40s, with a receding hairline, and a younger Asian woman with glasses. "This is Mr. Patterson from our technical department," Mrs. Crawford said, "and Miss Wong from Human Resources. Please sit down." Marcus shook hands with both of them and sat across the table. His resume was already printed out in front of each interviewer, but none of them were looking at it. "Thank you for coming in, Mr. Johnson," Mrs. Crawford began. "Let's start with your background. Tell us about your experience." Marcus took a breath. He'd practiced this 100 times. "I worked at DataCore Systems for 8 years as a senior database architect. I specialized in enterprise database management system optimization and legacy system integration. During my time there, I developed a new indexing protocol that reduced query times by 40% and saved the company approximately $2 million annually." Mr. Patterson raised an eyebrow. "DataCore. I remember them. Small outfit. Got bought out, didn't they?" "Yes, sir. Meridian Corp acquired them and relocated operations to Seattle." "And you didn't go with them?" Marcus had known this question was coming. It always came. "No, sir. I had personal commitments that prevented me from relocating." Mrs. Crawford leaned forward. "Personal commitments. Can you be more specific?" Here it was, the moment that had killed 16 interviews before this one. "I'm a single father," Marcus said. "My daughter is 7 years old. She's established in her school, has friends, and is doing well. I didn't want to uproot her life." The three interviewers exchanged glances. Marcus saw something pass between them, a look he'd seen too many times before. "I see," Mrs. Crawford said, making a note on her tablet. "And her mother." Marcus's jaw tightened. "My wife passed away 3 years ago." "I'm sorry to hear that." Mrs. Crawford's voice carried no sympathy. "But you understand, Mr. Johnson, this is a demanding position. We often require employees to work late hours, weekends, sometimes holidays. How would you manage that with a child at home?" "I have reliable childcare arrangements. My neighbor has been helping me for years, and Lily is in an after-school program. I've never missed a deadline because of my family situation. In fact, I'd argue that being a single parent has made me more efficient and better at time management." Mr. Patterson leaned back in his chair. "Let's talk technical. What's your experience with cloud-based database architecture?" Finally, ground where Marcus felt confident. "I've worked extensively with AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud platforms. At DataCore, I led the migration of our primary customer database from on-premise servers to a hybrid cloud solution. The project was completed 3 weeks ahead of schedule and under budget." For the next 20 minutes, Marcus answered every technical question they threw at him. Database normalization, query optimization, disaster recovery protocols, security implementations. He knew his stuff, and he could see Mr. Patterson's skepticism slowly giving way to grudging respect. But Mrs. Crawford's expression never changed. "Mr. Johnson," she said when the technical questions were done, "I want to be direct with you. Your technical qualifications are adequate." Adequate. He'd just demonstrated knowledge that most engineers spent decades acquiring, and she called it adequate. "However," she continued, "we have concerns about your availability and commitment. This isn't a 9-to-5 position. We need people who can be fully present without distractions." "With respect, Mrs. Crawford, I don't consider my daughter a distraction. She's my motivation. I work harder because of her, not in spite of her." Mrs. Crawford smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. That's a lovely sentiment. But the reality is, when a crisis happens at 2 in the morning, we need someone who can be here, not someone who has to arrange babysitters. Marcus felt the familiar anger rising in his chest, but he pushed it down. He couldn't afford to lose his temper. Not here. Not now. I understand your concerns, he said carefully. But I'd like the opportunity to prove myself. My track record speaks for itself. I've never let personal circumstances affect my professional performance. Ms. Wong, who had been quiet throughout, finally spoke. Mr. Johnson, can I ask, how did you get into this field? I don't see a traditional educational background here. Marcus looked at her. I'm self-taught. I started learning to code at the public library when I was 14. Couldn't afford a computer at home, so I'd go there every day after school. Eventually, I earned a scholarship to community college, then transferred to State University. I worked full-time while getting my degree. Self-taught, Mrs. Crawford repeated, as if the word left a bad taste in her mouth. So no formal training from a recognized institution. I have a bachelor's degree in computer science from State University and 8 years of professional experience. State University. Another note on her tablet. I see. Marcus understood what she wasn't saying. Not MIT, not Stanford, not the kind of school that would make his resume shine. Just a state school earned through sweat and sacrifice, while other kids had their parents paying their way through Ivy League institutions. Mr. Patterson shifted uncomfortably. Look, the technical skills are there, I'll admit that. But Mrs. Crawford has a point about availability. We've had issues before with employees who couldn't commit fully. What kind of issues? Marcus asked. People who left early for school pickups, who couldn't travel for client meetings, who were distracted during crunch time. Mr. Patterson shrugged. It's just the reality of this industry. Marcus wanted to ask if those employees had been single fathers. He wanted to ask if any of them had been black. He wanted to ask a lot of things, but he kept his mouth shut. Mrs. Crawford closed her tablet. I think we have everything we need, Mr. Johnson. We'll be in touch within a few days. Marcus recognized the dismissal. He'd heard those words 16 times before. If I could just add one thing, he said, standing. I've been looking for work for 7 months. In that time, I've kept my skills current. I've taken online courses, and I've done freelance consulting when I could find it. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for a fair chance to prove what I can do. Mrs. Crawford stood as well. We appreciate your enthusiasm, Mr. Johnson, but I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think you're the right fit for our company culture. There it was. The phrase that meant everything and nothing. Company culture. The polite way of saying, we don't want people like you here. I understand, Marcus said, though he didn't. Thank you for your time. Mrs. Crawford walked him back to the elevator. As they waited for it to arrive, she said, Mr. Johnson, a word of advice. Perhaps you should consider positions that are more accommodating to your situation. Smaller companies, startups, places where the expectations aren't quite so rigorous. Marcus looked at her. You mean places that would be grateful to have someone like me regardless of my qualifications? I mean places where you wouldn't be setting yourself up for failure. The elevator doors opened. Marcus stepped inside and turned to face her. Mrs. Crawford, I've been failing my whole life. I failed when my father died, and I had to work 2 jobs to help my mother pay rent. I failed when I couldn't afford the colleges I got accepted to. I failed when my wife got sick, and I couldn't save her. But I'm still here, and I'm still fighting. Because I've got a little girl at home who thinks her daddy can do anything. And I'd rather keep failing than prove her wrong. The doors closed on Mrs. Crawford's stunned face. Marcus rode down 32 floors in silence. When he reached the lobby, he walked past the reception desk, past the waterfall, past the employees in their expensive suits. He pushed through the revolving door and stepped out into the morning sun. The air hit him like a slap. He'd done it again. Let his pride get the better of him. Probably killed any chance of getting a callback, assuming he ever had one. He walked to the bus stop and sat down on the bench. His phone showed 9:47. The interview had lasted less than an hour. All those weeks of preparation, of practicing answers in front of the mirror, of imagining how this day would go. 45 minutes, and it was over. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen. How did it go? Marcus stared at the screen. How was he supposed to answer that? How was he supposed to tell this woman who'd been taking care of his daughter for free, who'd refused every offer of payment because neighbors help neighbors, that he'd failed again? Still waiting to hear back, he typed. Taking the bus home now. The reply came immediately. Lily's at school. She said to tell you she's sending you superpowers through her mind. Marcus laughed, but it came out more like a sob. He put his phone away and stared at the bus route map, trying to figure out how long it would take to get home. That's when his phone buzzed again. Not a text this time. An email. Dear Mr. Johnson, thank you for your interest in the position at Sentinel Data Solutions. After careful consideration, we have decided to move forward with other candidates. Another rejection. He'd applied to Sentinel 3 weeks ago and had almost forgotten about it. Marcus closed the email without reading the rest. He knew what it said. They always said the same things. Impressive qualifications. Competitive pool of candidates. We'll keep your resume on file. Meaningless words that added up to the same answer. No. He thought about his bank account. $847.32. That was everything he had left in the world. Rent was $1,200 due in 2 weeks. Lily needed new shoes because she'd outgrown her old ones. The electric bill was overdue, and he still had to figure out how to buy groceries for the rest of the month. 7 months ago, he'd had a good job, a savings account, and a plan for the future. Then, Meridian Corp had swooped in, bought DataCore, and shipped everything to Seattle. They'd offered him a position, their senior role, good salary, relocation package. All he had to do was uproot his daughter, take her away from her school and her friends, and the only home she'd ever known. He couldn't do it. Lily had already lost her mother. He couldn't take everything else away from her too. So he'd stayed. And he'd watched his savings dwindle month by month while the rejection letters piled up. The bus arrived. Marcus climbed on, swiped his pass, and found a seat near the back. The bus was mostly empty at this hour. A few elderly people, a young mother with a stroller, a man in work clothes who looked like he was heading to a construction site. Marcus leaned his head against the window and closed his eyes. He could feel Lily's drawing in his pocket, pressing against his heart. My daddy saves the day. Some superhero he was. He didn't realize he'd fallen asleep until his phone alarm woke him up. The bus had reached his stop. He stumbled off, still groggy, and walked the 3 blocks to his apartment building. The elevator was broken again, so he climbed 4 flights of stairs. His neighbor's door was open, and Mrs. Chen's voice drifted out. Marcus, is that you? He stopped at her door. Mrs. Chen was 73 years old, a retired nurse who'd emigrated from China 40 years ago. She'd lost her husband to cancer the same year Marcus lost his wife. They'd become friends through shared grief, bonded by the understanding that some losses never fully heal. Hey, Mrs. Chen. Thanks for taking care of Lily this morning. Nonsense. That girl is a joy. Now come in, I made soup. I'm not hungry, but thank you. Mrs. Chen studied his face. After a moment, she nodded. The interview didn't go well. It wasn't a question. Marcus didn't bother lying. They said I wasn't the right fit, same as always. Did they ask about Lily? They always ask about Lily. Mrs. Chen made a sound that might have been a curse in Cantonese. Stupid people. They don't know what they're missing. Marcus managed a weak smile. Thanks for believing in me. I don't believe in you, Marcus. I know you. There's a difference. Now go rest. I'll bring you some soup whether you want it or not. Marcus continued to his apartment. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. immediately hit by the familiar smell of home. Lily's crayons on the kitchen table, her backpack by the door. A photo of his wife Sarah smiling from the mantel. He stood there for a long moment, just looking at that photo. Sarah had been the dreamer in their family. She'd believed anything was possible if you worked hard enough. She'd pushed him to apply for better jobs, to ask for raises, to never settle for less than he deserved. "What would you tell me to do?" he asked the photo. "Because I'm running out of ideas here." Sarah, of course, didn't answer. She'd been gone for 3 years, but Marcus still talked to her sometimes. It helped him feel less alone. He pulled Lily's drawing from his pocket and looked at it again. His daughter had drawn him as a superhero cape flowing behind him, standing in front of a tall building. She'd put a big smile on his face, even though Marcus couldn't remember the last time he'd really smiled. At the bottom of the picture below the words, "My daddy saves the day," Lily had added something else. In smaller letters she'd written, "I love you, Daddy. Don't give up." Marcus sank onto the couch, still holding the drawing. He didn't cry. He was too tired to cry. But he sat there for a long time thinking about his daughter, his wife, his life. Thinking about what he was supposed to do next. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen. "Forgot to tell you. Lily's school called earlier. She fell during recess and scraped her knee. She's fine, but she was crying and wanted you. She told them not to call you because she didn't want to interrupt your important meeting." Marcus stared at the message. His 7-year-old daughter had been hurt and scared, but she'd told the school not to call him because she didn't want to bother him. That was when the tears finally came. He sat on the couch and cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears running down his face as he thought about everything he'd been trying to hold together. The jobs he couldn't get. The bills he couldn't pay. The daughter he was trying so hard not to fail. After a few minutes, he wiped his eyes and took a deep breath. Feeling sorry for himself wasn't going to solve anything. He looked at the clock. 11:30. Lily's school didn't end until 3:30. He had 4 hours to figure out something. Marcus stood up and walked to the window. From his 4th-floor apartment, he could see the street below the neighborhood he'd lived in for 10 years. It wasn't fancy, more bodegas than boutiques, more potholes than parks, but it was home. This was where Lily had taken her first steps, where Sarah had made breakfast every Sunday morning, where they'd built a life together piece by piece. He couldn't lose it. He couldn't let Lily down. Marcus made a decision. He would go back to next-gen technologies. Not to beg for the job, he had more pride than that. But he'd left his folder in the conference room, the one with his references and certificates. He needed those for other applications. It was a flimsy excuse, and he knew it. But something was pulling him back to that building. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was the need to face the people who'd rejected him one more time. Or maybe it was something else entirely, something he couldn't name but couldn't ignore. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. Marcus arrived back at Next Gen Technologies just after noon. The building looked different now, somehow less intimidating in the midday sun. He'd taken the bus again using some of his precious remaining funds, but he'd justified it as an investment. Those reference letters were important. He walked through the revolving door and stopped. Something was wrong. The lobby, which had been calm and orderly that morning, was now in chaos. Employees were running in every direction. People were shouting into phones. A group had gathered around a computer terminal, all talking at once. Marcus stood near the entrance watching. His trained eye picked up details others might miss. The red error screens on multiple monitors. The frantic typing that yielded no results. The growing panic on people's faces. This wasn't normal office stress. This was a crisis. A man in an expensive suit strode out of an elevator, his face red with anger. Marcus recognized him from the company website, Richard Sterling, CEO of NextGen Technologies. He was surrounded by executives, all of them talking at once. "I don't want excuses," Sterling was shouting. "I want this fixed. Our entire client database is down. Do you understand what that means? We have 50,000 enterprise accounts we cannot access." Sir, we've called in every consultant in the city. Then, call more. Call consultants from other cities. I don't care what it costs. Marcus moved closer, careful to stay out of the way. His professional instincts were kicking in, analyzing what he was seeing and hearing. Client database down, multiple systems affected, consultants being called in. This was a cascade failure. Marcus had seen it before at Datacore 5 years ago. A similar crash had brought the entire company to its knees. It had taken their best engineers 3 days to fix it. Marcus had fixed it in 2 hours. He remembered that day clearly. Everyone had been panicking, trying complicated solutions, bringing in expensive outside help. But Marcus had noticed something they'd all missed. A simple corruption in the backup validation files that was causing the system to reject every recovery attempt. Once he'd identified the problem, the solution was straightforward. He watched the chaos unfolding at NextGen and wondered if they were making the same mistake. None of your business, he told himself. They rejected you. Let them figure it out themselves. But he couldn't look away. He watched as more consultant teams arrived, hauling equipment cases and setting up workstations in the lobby. He watched as the CEO grew more and more agitated, his face turning from red to purple. He watched as the clock on the wall ticked past 12:30, then 100, then 1:30. Nothing was working. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen. "Are you okay? You've been gone a while." He texted back. "Something came up. I'll explain later." "Is Lily okay?" "She's fine. School says her knee is already healing. She told her teacher that her daddy is going to save the world today." Marcus stared at that message for a long time. Save the world. His daughter, even from miles away, even without knowing what was happening, still believed in him. He looked up at the chaos in the lobby. Somewhere in that mess of consultants and executives and panicking employees was a problem he might be able to solve. A way to prove that everything he'd told Mrs. Crawford that morning was true. "You're being stupid," he told himself. "They'll never let you help. They'll call security." But another voice in his head spoke up. The voice of his father, who'd worked himself into an early grave but never complained. The voice of his wife, who'd always believed he could do more than he thought. The voice of his daughter, who saw him as a superhero. "Don't give up, Daddy." Marcus made a decision. He straightened his cheap suit, lifted his chin, and walked toward the chaos. Marcus pushed through the crowd of employees who had gathered near the lobby entrance. Nobody stopped him. Nobody even noticed him. In the chaos, he was invisible, just another face in a building full of panicking people. He moved closer to the main cluster of activity where consultant teams had set up multiple workstations. Cables snaked across the marble floor in every direction. Laptops and diagnostic equipment covered every available surface. At least 8 different teams were working simultaneously, and none of them seemed to be making progress. "Try the secondary backup cluster," someone shouted. "Already did. Same error." "What about rolling back to last week's snapshot?" "The snapshot's corrupted too. Everything's corrupted." Marcus listened, his mind automatically processing what he was hearing. Corrupted backups. Cascade failures across multiple systems. The consultants were treating this like a hardware problem, throwing more equipment at it, trying brute force solutions. But Marcus had heard enough to know they were looking in the wrong place. He edged closer to one of the workstations, trying to get a look at the error codes on the screen. A young consultant noticed him and frowned. "Hey, who are you? Are you with Data Stream Solutions?" "No, I'm..." "Then you need to step back, sir. This is a restricted work area." "I understand. I just wanted to..." "Sir." The consultant's voice hardened. "Step back." Marcus raised his hands and retreated a few steps. But he kept watching. From where he stood, he could see fragments of error messages on multiple screens. The same codes kept appearing over and over. He'd seen those codes before. 5 years ago at Datacore, when he'd solved a nearly identical problem. The pieces were falling into place in his mind, but he needed to see more to be certain. "This is a disaster," a voice said behind him. An absolute disaster. Marcus turned. Two executives in expensive suits were standing nearby, watching the chaos with grim expressions. Sterling's going to lose his mind, one of them said. The Whitmore presentation is in 2 hours. If we can't access the client data, we're done. Whitmore's been looking for an excuse to pull out of the deal. This gives it to him on a silver platter. How much is the deal worth again? $200 million, plus the follow-on contracts. Marcus felt his eyebrows rise. $200 million. No wonder the CEO was panicking. Who are all these people? The first executive asked, gesturing at the consultants. Best in the city, supposedly. Sterling's paying through the nose for them. $50,000 an hour, I heard. $50,000 an hour and they can't fix it. Nobody can fix it. Harrison from IT said he's never seen anything like this. The whole system just collapsed, all at once. Marcus wanted to speak up. He wanted to tell them that he had seen something like this before, that he might know what was wrong, but he held back. These men would never listen to him. He was nobody to them, just another face in the crowd. The executives moved away, still talking in worried tones. Marcus stayed where he was thinking. He should leave. He should go home, wait for Lily to get out of school, and forget about next-gen technologies and their problems. This wasn't his fight. These people had rejected him, looked down on him, told him he wasn't good enough for their company culture. But $200 million. And 50,000 employees, according to the company website. If this deal fell through, how many of those people would lose their jobs? How many of them had families, children, mortgages? Marcus thought about Lily's drawing in his pocket. My daddy saves the day. He thought about his father, who had always said that a man's worth was measured by what he did when nobody was watching. He thought about Sarah, who would have told him to stop being stubborn and help people who needed it, even if they didn't deserve it. Damn it, Marcus muttered under his breath. He started moving through the crowd again, this time with purpose. He needed to find someone who would listen to him, someone with the authority to let him try. The CEO, Richard Sterling, was standing near the elevators, surrounded by a group of executives and consultants. His face was a mask of controlled fury, but Marcus could see the fear underneath. This man was watching his company implode in real time. Marcus approached the group. A security guard immediately stepped into his path. Sir, you can't be here. This area is restricted. I need to speak with Mr. Sterling. Mr. Sterling is busy. You'll have to... It's about the system failure. I think I know what's wrong. The guard's expression didn't change. Sir, we have professional consultants working on the problem. Please step back. I am a professional. I'm a database architect with 8 years of experience. I've seen this exact type of failure before. That's great, sir. But unless you're with one of the consulting firms, let him through. Marcus looked up. Richard Sterling had noticed the commotion and was walking toward them. Up close, the CEO looked exhausted. His tie was loosened, his jacket was off, and his eyes had the wild look of a man watching his life's work crumble. You said you know what's wrong, Sterling demanded. I think so, yes. I'd need to see the error logs to confirm, but based on what I've observed. Who are you? Which firm are you with? Marcus hesitated. I'm not with a firm, sir. My name is Marcus Johnson. I was interviewed here this morning for the senior database architect position. Sterling's eyes narrowed. Interviewed so you don't work here? No, sir, but I have extensive experience with... Crawford, Sterling bellowed. A moment later, Mrs. Crawford appeared, pushing through the crowd. When she saw Marcus, her face went pale. Mr. Sterling, I can explain. Is this the man you interviewed this morning? Yes, sir, but we decided he wasn't suitable for... I don't care what you decided. He says he knows what's wrong with our systems. Sterling turned back to Marcus. Talk. What do you think the problem is? Marcus was acutely aware of everyone watching him. The executives, the consultants, Mrs. Crawford with her disapproving glare, the security guard who looked ready to throw him out at a moment's notice. Based on the error codes I've seen, you're dealing with a cascading index corruption. Marcus said. Your primary database index tables have been damaged probably during a routine update or backup process. The system is trying to rebuild them using your backup validation files. But those files are corrupted too. It's creating an infinite loop that's crashing your entire network. One of the lead consultants stepped forward. He was a heavy-set man in his 50s, with an expensive watch and a condescending smile. With all due respect, Mr. Johnson. Was it? We've already examined the index tables. That's basic troubleshooting. The problem is much more complex than that. Did you check the backup validation files? Marcus asked. The backup validation files are fine. We verified them an hour ago. You verified that they exist, but did you check their integrity signatures? Because if those signatures don't match the primary index tables, the system will keep rejecting every rebuild attempt. The consultant's smile faltered slightly. The integrity signatures are automatically validated during the backup process. Unless the corruption occurred during that process, Marcus said, in which case the system would have saved corrupted signatures as valid. It's a known vulnerability in older database architectures. I'm guessing your infrastructure includes some legacy systems. Sterling looked at the consultant. Well, does it? The consultant shifted uncomfortably. We do have some legacy components, yes, but they're ring-fenced from the primary systems. Ring-fenced doesn't mean isolated, Marcus said. If your backup validation routines run through those legacy systems, the corruption could have spread from there. This is ridiculous, the consultant said. We're professionals. We've been doing this for 20 years, and you expect us to believe that some random person off the street knows more than we do. I'm not random, Marcus said quietly. I'm a database architect with 8 years of experience. I've worked with legacy systems my entire career because that's what smaller companies could afford. I've seen this exact problem before, and I fixed it in 2 hours while your professional colleagues were still trying to figure out what was wrong. The consultant's face reddened. Mr. Sterling, I strongly advise against letting this man anywhere near your systems. He's not qualified. He's not vetted. For all we know, he could be the one who caused this problem in the first place. Why would I sabotage a company I was trying to work for? Marcus asked. Maybe you were angry about not getting the job. I didn't find out I wasn't getting the job until 2 hours ago. Your systems went down before that. Sterling held up his hand, silencing both of them. He looked at Marcus with an intensity that made most people uncomfortable. But Marcus held his gaze. He had nothing to lose. How long would it take you to check your theory? Sterling asked. 5 minutes? Maybe less. And if you're wrong, then you're no worse off than you are now. Sterling turned to Mrs. Crawford. Why didn't we hire this man? Mrs. Crawford's face was a study in barely controlled panic. Sir, he's a single father. We felt that his personal commitments might interfere with his personal commitments. Sterling's voice was flat. You rejected a qualified candidate because he has a child. It's not just that, sir. His background isn't traditional. He's self-taught. He went to a state school, and his previous employer was a small company that no longer exists. We felt that someone with a more prestigious pedigree would be better suited to Crawford. Sterling's voice cut through her explanation like a knife. In the last 4 hours, I've had 6 consulting firms in this building. Each of them charges more per hour than most people make in a month. Each of them has prestigious pedigrees and traditional backgrounds, and none of them can fix my problem. He turned to Marcus. You have 5 minutes. Harrison, give him access to a terminal. A nervous-looking man in his 30s stepped forward. Sir, the security protocols. Override them. Now. Marcus followed Harrison to a workstation that had been set up near the center of the lobby. The consultant who had argued against him crossed his arms and watched with obvious skepticism. Mrs. Crawford stood nearby, her face tight with barely concealed hostility. Marcus sat down and looked at the screen. Multiple windows were open, showing various diagnostic tools and error logs. He started working his fingers moving across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. "Pull up the backup validation logs," he said to Harrison. "I need to see the last 24 hours. "That's a lot of data." "Filter for integrity check failures." Harrison typed a command. A new window opened, filled with error codes. Marcus scanned the data, his eyes moving rapidly across the screen. "There. See that timestamp, 3:47 a.m. That's when your backup validation routine ran. And look at these error codes. The system flagged an integrity mismatch but proceeded with the backup anyway." "That shouldn't happen," Harrison said. "The system should have stopped and alerted us." It would have, except someone set the error handling to continue on failure instead of stop on failure, probably to prevent false positives from interrupting overnight processes. But in this case, it meant the system saved corrupted validation files without anyone knowing. Harrison stared at the screen. "Oh my God, you're right. That's exactly what happened." "Can you fix it?" Sterling demanded. "Yes, but I need to do it in a specific order. First, I have to stop all automated recovery processes. They're just making things worse. Then I need to manually delete the corrupted validation files and force the system to regenerate them from the archive." "How long?" 3 minutes, maybe 4. "Do it!" Marcus's fingers flew across the keyboard. He was in his element now, the chaos around him fading into background noise. This was what he was good at. This was what he'd spent years learning, practicing, perfecting. Not in fancy schools or prestigious internships, but in public libraries and community centers and late nights after Lily was asleep. "Stopping automated recovery," he narrated as he worked. "Isolating the corrupted validation files. Deleting. Done. Now forcing archive regeneration." He typed a final command and pressed enter. For a moment, nothing happened. The screens continued showing red error messages. The consultants exchanged skeptical glances. Mrs. Crawford allowed herself a small, smug smile. Then, one by one, the error messages began disappearing. "What's happening?" Sterling asked. "The system is accepting the new validation files," Harrison said, his voice rising with excitement. "It's rebuilding the primary index tables. Sir, it's working. It's actually working." Green status indicators began appearing on screens throughout the lobby. Employees at their workstations started shouting in surprise and relief. "My email's back. I can access the client database. Everything's online." The lobby erupted in cheers. People were hugging each other, pumping their fists, some even crying with relief. Marcus sat quietly at the workstation, watching the status indicators turn from red to green. Harrison was staring at him with something like awe. "How did you know? We had 8 teams working on this for 4 hours and you fixed it in 3 minutes." "Sometimes the answer isn't in the newest technology," Marcus said. "It's in understanding how systems actually talk to each other. I learned that fixing old computers at the community center when I was 15. They couldn't afford new equipment, so we had to make everything work together. Legacy systems, mismatched software, hand-me-down hardware. You learn a lot about fundamentals when you don't have the luxury of throwing money at problems." Sterling walked over to the workstation. His face had transformed from desperate fury to something Marcus couldn't quite read. "Mr. Johnson, you just saved my company." "I just fixed a database error, sir." "No. You saved $200 million in contracts. You saved our reputation. You saved 50,000 jobs." Sterling turned to the lead consultant, who was still standing with his arms crossed, though now his face was pale. "You're fired. All of you. Send me your bills and then get out of my building. I don't want to see any of you again." The consultant sputtered. "Mr. Sterling, that's hardly fair." The problem was extremely unusual. The problem was basic, according to the man you said wasn't qualified. "Get out." The consultant opened his mouth to argue, then thought better of it. He gestured to his team, and they began packing up their equipment in humiliated silence. Sterling turned back to Marcus. "Mr. Johnson, I owe you an apology and a job offer." Mrs. Crawford stepped forward. Sir, I really must protest. The hiring protocols. Crawford, be quiet. Sterling didn't even look at her. Mr. Johnson, I want you to start as our senior systems engineer. No, wait. Director of Systems Architecture. Starting salary of $150,000 plus a 10% annual bonus. Full benefits, including health insurance for you and your daughter. Flexible working arrangements, work from home when you need to, and a signing bonus of $25,000 available immediately. Marcus felt the world tilt slightly. $150,000. He'd never made more than $70,000 in his life. Sir, I don't know what to say. Say yes. You'd be doing me a favor. I need someone who can actually solve problems instead of just talking about them. Marcus thought about Lily, about the rent that was due, about the shoes she needed, the art supplies for her project, the future he wanted to give her. I have one condition, he heard himself say. Sterling raised an eyebrow. Name it. I want you to review your hiring practices. I want you to look at how many qualified people have been turned away because someone decided they weren't the right fit, based on things that have nothing to do with their abilities. Marcus glanced at Mrs. Crawford. I'm not the only single parent looking for work. I'm not the only person who went to a state school instead of an Ivy League university. I'm not the only one who's been judged for things that have nothing to do with how well I can do my job. Sterling was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. Fair enough. Crawford, I want a full audit of our hiring practices on my desk by end of week, and I want you to personally review every candidate we've rejected in the past 6 months. He looked at Marcus. Anything else? No, sir, that's all. Then do we have a deal? Marcus extended his hand. Sterling shook it firmly. Welcome to Next Gen Technologies, Mr. Johnson. The employees in the lobby burst into applause. Some of them had witnessed the entire exchange, the rejection that morning, the crisis, the solution, and now the redemption. They clapped and cheered for the man who had walked in as a rejected applicant and was walking out as a director. Marcus smiled, but his mind was already elsewhere. He was thinking about Lily waiting for him at school, about the call he was going to make to Mrs. Chen, about the look on his daughter's face when he told her that Daddy had finally found a job. No, not just a job, a future. Harrison approached him, still looking slightly dazed. Mr. Johnson, can I just say, that was the most impressive thing I've ever seen. Where did you learn to do that? Marcus thought about the public library where he'd taught himself to code, the community center where he'd fixed broken computers for free, the late nights after Sarah passed when he'd studied for certifications while Lily slept, trying to make himself valuable enough that someone would take a chance on him. Everywhere, he said. I learned everywhere. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen. Lily just called from the school office. She wants to know if you're coming to pick her up. She says her knee doesn't hurt anymore and she has something important to tell you. Marcus looked at the time. 2:45. He had 45 minutes before school let out. He texted back, "Tell her I'm on my way, and tell her that her daddy saved the day." The response came immediately. She says she already knew that. Marcus laughed. For the first time in 7 months, he laughed without any weight behind it. Pure, simple joy. He turned to Sterling. Sir, I need to go pick up my daughter from school. Can I start tomorrow? Sterling smiled. Take the rest of the day. Take tomorrow too if you need it. You've earned it. Thank you, sir. I'll be here first thing Monday morning. As Marcus walked toward the exit, he passed Mrs. Crawford. She was standing alone, her tablet clutched to her chest, her face a mask of suppressed emotion. Marcus stopped. Mrs. Crawford. She looked at him warily. Mr. Johnson? I don't hold grudges, he said quietly. What happened this morning, it wasn't personal. You were doing what you thought was right for the company. I understand that. Her expression flickered with something that might have been shame. I was wrong. I see that now. We're all wrong sometimes. The important thing is what we do next. He extended his hand. "I look forward to working with you." Mrs. Crawford stared at his hand for a moment. Then slowly she shook it. "Welcome to Next Gen, Mr. Johnson." Marcus nodded and continued toward the exit. Behind him, he could hear the sounds of a company coming back to life. Phones ringing keyboards, clicking voices, rising in conversation. The crisis was over. The work was continuing. He pushed through the revolving door and stepped out into the afternoon sun. The same sun that had seemed so harsh that morning now felt warm on his face. The same building that had loomed over him like a wall of judgment now felt like something he was part of. Everything had changed in the span of a few hours. Marcus pulled out his phone and dialed a number. It rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Marcus, is everything okay?" "Mrs. Chen." He could barely keep his voice steady. "I got the job." There was a pause. Then, "Oh, Marcus, I knew you would. I knew it." "It's more than that. They made me a director, with a real salary, benefits, everything." "A director?" Mrs. Chen laughed with delight. "Wait until Lily hears. She's going to be so proud." "I'm going to pick her up right now. I want to tell her in person." "Of course. Go. Go be with your daughter." Marcus ended the call and started walking toward the bus stop. Then he stopped. He had money now. Not yet in his account, but the promise of it. The certainty of it. He pulled out his phone and called for a car. For the first time in months, he didn't have to worry about the cost. The car arrived in minutes. Marcus climbed in and gave the driver the address of Lily's school. As they pulled away from Next Gen Technologies, he looked back at the building one more time. This morning, that building had represented everything he couldn't have. Now it represented everything that was possible. He reached into his pocket and pulled out Lily's drawing. The paper was wrinkled now, worn from being carried all day, but the picture was still clear. A man in a cape, standing tall, saving the day. "My daddy saves the day." Marcus held the drawing to his chest and closed his eyes. He couldn't wait to tell his daughter that she was right. The car pulled up to Green Valley Elementary at 3:15 minutes before the final bell. Marcus paid the driver and stepped out onto the sidewalk, his heart beating faster than it had during the entire crisis at NextGen. Fixing a database was easy. Telling his daughter that their lives were about to change, that was something else entirely. He walked toward the main entrance, passing groups of parents already gathering for pickup. Some of them glanced at him, then looked away. Marcus was used to that. He was often the only black father at school events, the only single dad in a sea of mothers and married couples. He'd learned to ignore the curious stares, the whispered conversations that stopped when he approached. Today, he didn't care about any of that. Today, he had news that would change everything. The front office was quiet when he walked in. A woman behind the desk looked up and smiled. "Mr. Johnson, you're early today." "I wanted to surprise Lily. Is she okay? I heard she fell during recess." "Oh, she's fine. Just a little scrape. That girl is tougher than she looks." The woman leaned forward conspiratorially. She told everyone in the nurse's office that her daddy was at an important meeting and she didn't want to bother him. Sweet thing. Marcus felt his throat tighten. "That's my girl." "The bell rings in about 10 minutes. You can wait in the pickup area, or I can call her class if you'd like." "I'll wait, thank you." Marcus walked to the pickup area, a covered pavilion where parents gathered each afternoon. A few mothers were already there chatting with each other. They glanced at him as he approached, then returned to their conversation. He found a spot near the edge of the pavilion and pulled out his phone. No new messages, no missed calls, just the same lock screen photo he'd had for 3 years. Lily and Sarah at the beach, both of them laughing at something Marcus had said from behind the camera. "Mr. Johnson." He looked up. One of the mothers had approached him, a woman he vaguely recognized from parent-teacher conferences. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I just wanted to say Lily is such a wonderful girl. She helped my son Tommy with his math homework last week. He couldn't stop talking about how patient she was with him." Marcus smiled. "She gets that from her mother." Well, you're doing a great job with her. It can't be easy raising a child on your own. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, Marcus admitted, but also the best. The woman nodded sympathetically. My husband travels a lot for work, so I know a little bit about what it's like to handle everything yourself. If you ever need anything, someone to pick up Lily, or just someone to talk to, please don't hesitate to ask. Marcus was surprised by the offer. In 7 years of raising Lily alone, he could count on one hand the number of times another parent had reached out to him like this. Thank you, he said. I really appreciate that. The woman smiled and returned to her group. Marcus watched her go, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Connection. Community. The sense that maybe he wasn't as alone as he sometimes felt. The bell rang loud and shrill, cutting through his thoughts. Within seconds, the doors burst open and children poured out a flood of backpacks and lunchboxes and excited chatter. Marcus scanned the crowd, looking for Lily's familiar face. He spotted her almost immediately. She was walking slowly, favoring her bandaged knee, her backpack dragging on the ground behind her. Lily! Her head snapped up. When she saw him, her face transformed into pure joy. Daddy! She dropped her backpack and ran toward him, forgetting all about her injured knee. Marcus knelt down and caught her in his arms, lifting her off the ground and spinning her around. Careful, careful, he laughed. Your knee. It doesn't hurt anymore, Daddy. I'm tough. I know you are, baby. The toughest girl I know. He set her down and looked at her. She was grinning from ear to ear, her 2 front teeth still growing in her hair in the braids Mrs. Chen had done that morning. Mrs. Patterson said you called? Lily said. She said you have good news. What is it? Did you get a job? Did you? Marcus knelt down so he was at her eye level. Lily, I need to tell you something. Her smile faltered slightly. Is it bad news? No, baby, it's the best news. Then why do you look like you're going to cry? Marcus laughed, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. Because sometimes people cry when they're happy. Didn't you know that? Mommy used to say that, Lily said softly. She said she cried when I was born because she was so happy. That's right, she did. Marcus took a deep breath. Lily, I got a job today. You did. Her eyes went wide. A real job like before. Better than before. Much better. I'm going to be a director at a big company. We're going to have money for rent and food and your school supplies. And health insurance, so if you get sick we can go to the doctor without worrying. Lily threw her arms around his neck. I knew it. I knew you could do it. I told Mrs. Chen this morning that you were going to get the job because you're the smartest daddy in the world. Marcus held her tight, breathing in the familiar smell of her shampoo and the fruit snacks she always had at lunch. You know what helped me the most today? What? He reached into his pocket and pulled out the drawing. It was wrinkled and worn, but still intact. This. Your picture. I kept it with me the whole time, and every time I felt scared or worried, I looked at it and remembered that you believe in me. Lily took the drawing and examined it critically. The cape is crooked. I didn't have enough time to fix it. It's perfect. Don't change anything. Daddy, are we going to be okay now? Really okay. Marcus looked at his daughter, this 7-year-old girl who had been through more in her short life than most adults ever experienced. She'd lost her mother, watched her father struggle to find work, learned to ask for less because she knew money was tight. And through all of it, she'd never stopped believing in him. We're going to be more than okay, he said. We're going to be great. Can we celebrate? What did you have in mind? Lily thought for a moment. Ice cream, the good kind, from the place with the sprinkles. Ice cream it is, but first we need to get your backpack. You dropped it back there. Lily gasped and ran back to retrieve her bag. Marcus watched her go, his heart so full it almost hurt. This morning, he'd been a desperate man with no prospects and dwindling hope. Now he was a director at one of the biggest tech companies in the city, with a salary that would have seemed like fantasy just hours ago. And it had all started with a rejection. Lily returned with her backpack, and they walked hand in hand toward the parking lot. Marcus realized he didn't have a car, he'd taken a ride share to the school. For a moment, the old anxiety crept back. How much would another ride cost? Could he afford it? Then he remembered. He had a signing bonus coming. $25,000. He could afford anything. Lily, how do you feel about taking a car to the ice cream shop? A nice one? Like a taxi? Like a fancy taxi, the kind you order on the phone. Lily's eyes went wide. Really? We can do that. We can do anything we want, baby. Starting today. He ordered the car, and they waited on a bench near the school entrance. Lily swung her legs, unable to contain her excitement. Daddy, can I ask you something? Anything. At the job today, did they say mean things to you again, like the other times? Marcus hesitated. He'd never told Lily about the rejections about the interviews that ended with polite dismissals and barely concealed discrimination. But she was perceptive, this daughter of his. She'd seen him come home defeated time after time. She knew more than she let on. Some people said some things that weren't very nice, he admitted. They said I wasn't qualified, that I wasn't the right fit. But you are qualified. You're the best at computers. You fixed Mrs. Chen's laptop when even the computer store couldn't figure out what was wrong. Marcus smiled. I know, baby. But sometimes people make decisions based on things that have nothing to do with how good you are at your job. They look at where you went to school, or what you look like, or whether you have a family, and they decide you don't belong. Lily frowned. That's not fair. No, it's not. So what happened? How did you get the job anyway? Marcus thought about how to explain it. Well, after they told me I wasn't right for the job, something bad happened at the company. Their computers stopped working and they couldn't fix it. They had lots of people trying, but nobody could figure out what was wrong. And you knew how to fix it. I thought I might, so I went back inside and asked if I could try. At first, they didn't want to let me. They said I wasn't qualified, I wasn't one of the experts. But the man in charge was desperate, so he gave me a chance. And you fixed it. In 3 minutes. Lily's mouth dropped open. 3 minutes? But they said you weren't qualified. They were wrong. And when they saw that I could do what nobody else could do, they changed their minds. They offered me an even better job than the one I'd interviewed for. They said they were sorry for not believing in me. Lily was quiet for a moment, processing this. Daddy, why do people not believe in other people? It was such a simple question, but it cut right to the heart of everything Marcus had been thinking about all day. I don't know, baby. I think sometimes people are afraid of things they don't understand. They see someone who looks different or comes from a different place or does things a different way, and instead of being curious, they get scared. And when people are scared, they make bad decisions. Like the people at your job. Exactly like them. But then they learned right. They learned that you were smart and good at computers. They did. And that's the important part. People can change their minds. They can learn to see past their fear and recognize what's really there. It just takes time and patience and someone willing to show them the truth. The car arrived, a sleek black sedan that made Lily gasp with delight. They climbed in, and she immediately started pressing all the buttons she could find. Lily, don't touch everything. But there are so many buttons. I know, but okay, just that one. And that one. But that's it. The driver smiled at them in the rearview mirror. First time in a nice car, little lady. My daddy got a job today, Lily announced. He's going to be a director, and he fixed the computers when nobody else could, and the man said he was sorry for not believing in him. The driver looked at Marcus. That true? More or less. Well, congratulations, man. That's a hell of a story. Thanks. It's been one hell of a day. They drove through the city toward Lily's favorite ice cream shop, a small place in their neighborhood that made everything fresh. Marcus watched the streets go by, thinking about how different everything would be now. No more counting pennies. No more lying awake at night wondering how he'd pay the bills. No more telling Lily they couldn't afford things, watching her nod and pretend she didn't mind. They'd have stability, security, a future. Daddy, yeah, baby. Are you going to work at the new job for a long time? I hope so. Why? Because I don't want you to be sad again. When you couldn't find a job, you were sad all the time. You tried to hide it, but I could tell. Marcus felt his heart crack open a little. You could tell. You stopped singing in the shower. And you stopped making pancakes on Saturdays. And sometimes at night, I heard you talking to Mommy's picture. He closed his eyes. He'd thought he'd been hiding his despair from Lily, protecting her from the worst of it. But children saw everything. They felt everything. She'd known all along. I'm sorry, baby. I didn't want you to worry. It's okay, Daddy. I wasn't worried. I knew you'd figure it out. Mommy always said you were the best problem solver she ever met. She said you fixed her heart when it was broken. Before I was born, when she was sad all the time. She said you came along and fixed everything. Marcus had never heard this story before. Sarah had struggled with depression before they met, but she rarely talked about it. The fact that she'd shared this with Lily, probably during one of their private mother-daughter moments, made him realize how much Sarah had wanted Lily to understand who her father really was. Your mommy was the one who fixed me, he said quietly. I was lost before I met her. She gave me something to believe in. And now I give you something to believe in, right? Every single day, baby. Every single day. The car pulled up to the ice cream shop. Marcus paid the driver and added a generous tip, the first generous tip he'd been able to give in months. They walked inside, and the familiar smell of waffle cones and chocolate sauce enveloped them. Okay, Lily, get whatever you want. Any flavor, any size, as many toppings as you like. Lily looked at him suspiciously. Really, even a large? Even a large? With sprinkles. As many sprinkles as they'll give you. And whipped cream. Mountains of it. Lily's face split into the biggest grin he'd ever seen. She ran to the counter and pressed her face against the glass, examining every flavor with intense concentration. Marcus watched her memorizing this moment. He wanted to remember exactly how it felt, the relief, the joy, the overwhelming gratitude for this second chance. He wanted to hold on to this feeling forever. Daddy, I can't decide between chocolate peanut butter and cookie dough. Get both. Both in the same cup. In the same cup. You're the best daddy ever. She placed her order, a large cup with chocolate peanut butter and cookie dough, topped with sprinkles, whipped cream, and a cherry. Marcus ordered a small vanilla cone for himself. He wasn't hungry, but he wanted to share this moment with her. They sat at a small table by the window, Lily attacking her ice cream with enthusiasm, while Marcus watched the people passing by outside. Daddy. I have to tell you something. What is it? Lily put down her spoon and looked at him seriously. Today at school, Tommy Reeves said that you were never going to get a job because companies don't want to hire people like us. He said his mom told him that. Marcus felt a flash of anger quickly suppressed. What did you say to him? I said his mom was wrong. I said my daddy was smart and hardworking and that he was going to get the best job ever. And then he laughed at me. Oh, baby. But I didn't care that he laughed, because I knew I was right. Lily picked up her spoon again. And I was right, wasn't I? You were right, Lily. You were absolutely right. Good. I'm going to tell Tommy tomorrow. And I'm going to tell him that his mom doesn't know everything. Marcus couldn't help but laugh. Maybe be gentle about it. His mom might just not understand. Like the people at your job didn't understand. Exactly like that. Lily nodded thoughtfully. Okay. I'll be gentle, but I'm still going to tell him. They finished their ice cream and walked home, taking the long route so Lily could show Marcus a flower she'd discovered last week. It was growing through a crack in the sidewalk, a single yellow bloom surrounded by concrete. Isn't it pretty, Daddy? It grew even though nobody planted it. Mrs. Patterson says it's called perseverance. Marcus knelt down to look at the flower. Perseverance, that's a big word. Do you know what it means? It means keeping going even when things are hard. Like the flower kept growing even though the sidewalk was in the way. Like you kept looking for a job even when people said no. Marcus pulled his daughter close. You're the smartest 7-year-old I know. Mrs. Chen says I'm going to be president someday. Well, if Mrs. Chen says it, it must be true. They continued home, hand in hand. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. For the first time in months, Marcus didn't dread going home. He didn't dread the stack of unpaid bills on the counter, or the empty refrigerator, or the silence of their small apartment. Tonight, everything would be different. When they reached their building, Mrs. Chen was waiting outside her door. She was holding a covered dish and smiling. There you are. I've been waiting. I made dinner for you both, beef noodles, Lily's favorite. Mrs. Chen, you didn't have to do that. Nonsense. This is a celebration. My friend Marcus is a director now. She pulled him into a tight hug. I always knew this day would come. I told you, didn't I? I said things have a way of working out. You did. You were right. Of course I was right. I'm always right. Now come. Let's eat before the food gets cold. They went into Marcus's apartment, and Mrs. Chen began setting out the food. Lily ran to her room to change out of her school clothes, chattering excitedly about the ice cream shop and the fancy car and Tommy Reeves, who was going to be so surprised tomorrow. Marcus stood in his kitchen, watching these two people who had held him up through the darkest months of his life. Mrs. Chen, who had refused payment for childcare and brought over food when she knew he couldn't afford groceries. Lily, who had made him good luck cards and never stopped believing in him. He thought about Sarah, too. She should have been here for this. She should have been celebrating with them, laughing and crying and hugging Lily. The unfairness of her absence hit him fresh, as it sometimes did a wound that had scarred over but never fully healed. But he could feel her presence, too. In the apartment she'd decorated, in the daughter she'd raised, in the strength she'd given him before she left. You okay? Mrs. Chen asked quietly, touching his arm. Yeah, I'm okay. I wish Sarah was here. She is here, Marcus. She's always here. You carry her with you, and Lily carries her with her. She never left. She just changed form. Marcus nodded, unable to speak. Lily came bounding back into the kitchen wearing her favorite pajamas, even though it was barely 6 o'clock. Is it time to eat? I'm starving. Ice cream doesn't fill you up, Daddy. It just makes you want more food. They sat down together and ate Mrs. Chen's beef noodles. Lily told Mrs. Chen everything that had happened: the ice cream, the car, the story of how her daddy fixed the computers and became a director. Mrs. Chen listened with patience and enthusiasm, asking questions at all the right moments. After dinner, Mrs. Chen went home and Marcus helped Lily with her homework. It was a simple worksheet about addition and subtraction, but Lily insisted on showing him every single answer. Look, Daddy, I got all of them right, even the hard ones. That's my girl. I'm proud of you. Are you going to be able to help me with homework when you start your new job? You won't be too tired. I will never be too tired for you, Lily. Never. She nodded, satisfied. Good, because I have a big project coming up. We have to make a poster about our hero, and I'm making mine about you. Marcus's throat tightened. About me? Yes. Mrs. Patterson said we could pick anyone, a famous person, a character from a book, anyone we admire. And I picked you. Is that okay? That's more than okay, baby. That's the greatest honor I've ever received. Lily smiled and returned to her homework. Marcus watched her work, her tongue sticking out slightly as she concentrated, her pencil moving carefully across the page. This was why he'd fought so hard. This was why he'd endured the rejections, the discrimination, the despair. Not for himself, but for her. For this little girl who saw him as a hero, even when he couldn't see it himself. Later that night, after Lily was in bed, Marcus stood at her doorway and watched her sleep. Her breathing was slow and steady, one arm wrapped around her stuffed rabbit, the other stretched across the pillow. On her nightstand was a framed photo of Sarah taken on her birthday 3 years ago. She was laughing at something, her eyes crinkled with joy. Lily had insisted on keeping the photo by her bed so she could say goodnight to Mommy every night. Marcus walked over and picked up the frame. He looked at his wife's face, trying to remember the sound of her voice, the feel of her hand in his. "I did it, Sarah," he whispered. "I found a job, a good one. We're going to be okay now. Lily's going to be okay." He placed the photo back on the nightstand and bent down to kiss his daughter's forehead. "Sleep well, baby. Tomorrow is going to be the first day of our new life." He walked to the living room and sat down on the couch. The apartment was quiet, filled with the soft sounds of the city outside the window. For the first time in months, the silence didn't feel oppressive. It felt peaceful. Marcus pulled out his phone and looked at the email from Next Gen Technologies. The official offer letter sent while he was at the ice cream shop with Lily. $150,000 salary. Full benefits. Signing bonus. Everything Sterling had promised. He read it 3 times just to make sure it was real. Then he put the phone away, leaned his head back, and let himself feel something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Monday morning arrived faster than Marcus expected. He woke up at 5:30, an hour before his alarm, his body humming with nervous energy. For a long moment, he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, convinced that the past few days had been a dream. Then he reached for his phone and opened the email from Next Gen Technologies. Still there. Still real. He got up quietly, not wanting to wake Lily, and went to the kitchen to make coffee. The apartment felt different somehow, charged with possibility. Even the early morning light seemed brighter. By the time Lily woke up at 7, Marcus had already showered, dressed, and prepared her breakfast. She shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes, then stopped when she saw him. "Daddy, why are you wearing your fancy suit?" "Because today is my first day at the new job, remember?" Lily's face lit up. "Oh yeah, the director job." She climbed onto her chair and looked at him seriously. "You look very professional, like a boss." "That's the idea." "Mrs. Chen is going to take me to school today, right?" "That's right. And she'll pick you up too. I might be home a little late tonight because it's my first day, but I'll try to be back in time to tuck you in." Lily nodded, accepting this. "Daddy." "Yeah, baby. What if the people at your job are mean to you again, like before?" Marcus knelt down beside her chair. "Then I'll handle it, just like I handled it last time. Remember what I told you about people being scared of things they don't understand?" "Yeah." "Well, some people at my new job might be scared at first. They might not believe I can do the job. But I'm going to show them just like I showed Mr. Sterling, and eventually they'll understand. And if they don't, then that's their problem, not mine. I know what I'm capable of, and I know that my little girl believes in me. That's all I need." Lily threw her arms around his neck. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, baby. More than anything in the world." Mrs. Chen arrived at 7:30 to take Lily to school. She looked Marcus up and down and nodded approvingly. "Very handsome. You're going to knock them dead." "I hope so. Thanks again for helping with Lily." "Stop thanking me. Go. Be brilliant. Make that little girl proud." Marcus took the bus to Next Gen Technologies. He could have afforded a car service now, but something felt right about taking the same route he'd taken last Friday. The same bus, the same stops, the same view of the city passing by outside the window. Only everything was different. He arrived at the building at 8:15, 45 minutes early. The lobby was calm now, nothing like the chaos of last Friday. Employees moved purposefully toward elevators holding coffee cups and briefcases. Nobody seemed to notice him. Marcus approached the reception desk. A different woman was working today, younger than the one from Friday. Good morning. I'm Marcus Johnson. Today is my first day. I'm supposed to report to HR for onboarding. The receptionist typed something into her computer. Yes, Mr. Johnson, Director of Systems Architecture. Welcome to Next Gen. She handed him a visitor badge. HR is on the 15th floor. Ask for Jennifer. Thank you. Marcus clipped the badge to his jacket and walked toward the elevators. As he waited, he noticed a few employees glancing at him, then looking away quickly. Word had clearly spread about Friday's events. The new hire who had fixed the crisis. The outsider who had shown up the experts. The elevator arrived, and Marcus stepped inside. Just before the doors closed, a hand shot through the gap, and a young man squeezed in beside him. Hey, you're Marcus Johnson, right? Marcus nodded. I'm Tyler Brooks. I work in the database team. I was there on Friday when you fixed the system. The young man extended his hand. Man, that was incredible. I've never seen anything like it. Marcus shook his hand. Thanks. I got lucky. Lucky, dude, you solved in 3 minutes what 8 consultant teams couldn't figure out in 4 hours. That's not luck. That's skill. I'd seen the problem before, that's all. Different company, same basic issue. Tyler shook his head. You're being modest. The whole IT department has been talking about you all weekend. Half of them think you're a genius. The other half, he trailed off. The other half think I got lucky. Something like that. There are some people who aren't too happy about an outsider coming in and making them look bad. I didn't mean to make anyone look bad. I know, but you did. The lead consultant you showed up, his name is Victor Reeves. He's been the go-to guy for enterprise database issues in this city for 20 years. He's got connections everywhere. And now everyone's laughing at him because a guy off the street did what he couldn't. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. Victor Reeves. Yeah. Word is he's been calling Sterling all weekend trying to get back in his good graces. And he's not the only one who's unhappy. Some people inside the company feel like you jumped the line. You know, they've been working here for years waiting for a promotion. And then you show up and get made a director on your first day. I didn't ask for that. Sterling offered it. I know, man. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm just saying you should watch your back. Not everyone's going to be welcoming. The elevator stopped at the 15th floor. Tyler gave Marcus a sympathetic look. Good luck, man. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're here. We need people who can actually solve problems instead of just talking about them. Thanks, Tyler. I appreciate the heads up. Marcus stepped off the elevator and found his way to the HR office. A woman in her 40s was waiting for him with a stack of paperwork and a bright smile. Mr. Johnson, welcome to Next Gen. I'm Jennifer. We're so excited to have you on board. Mr. Sterling has spoken very highly of you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Let's get you set up. There's quite a bit of paperwork, I'm afraid, but we'll get through it as quickly as possible. Mr. Sterling wants to meet with you at 10 o'clock to discuss your role and responsibilities. The next hour was a blur of forms and signatures, employment contracts, tax documents, benefit enrollments, confidentiality agreements. Marcus signed everything, his hand moving automatically, while his mind processed what Tyler had told him. Victor Reeves, the consultant he'd embarrassed on Friday, a man with 20 years of connections and a bruised ego, and employees inside the company who resented his sudden promotion. He'd walked into this building thinking the hard part was over. Now he realized it was just beginning. At 10 o'clock sharp, Jennifer escorted him to the executive floor. The atmosphere was different up here. Quieter, more polished, the kind of hushed professionalism that came with power and money. Richard Sterling's office was at the end of a long hallway. Jennifer knocked once, then opened the door. Mr. Johnson is here, sir. Send him in. Marcus entered the office. Sterling was sitting behind a massive desk phone pressed to his ear, gesturing for Marcus to take a seat. The walls were covered with award certificates and photos of Sterling shaking hands with various important-looking people. I don't care what he says, Sterling was saying into the phone. The answer is no. He had his chance and he failed. I'm not interested in second chances for people who charge $50,000 to fail. He paused, listening. Then let him sue. I'd love to see him explain in court why he couldn't fix a problem that my new hire solved in 3 minutes. Goodbye. He hung up and turned to Marcus with a tired smile. Victor Reeves. Apparently, he's been telling everyone in the industry that he was sabotaged. That someone inside our company deliberately caused the crash to make him look bad. That's not true. Of course it's not true. But true doesn't matter to people like Reeves. He's been the king of the mountain for 20 years, and now he's been knocked off by someone he considers beneath him. He'll spend the rest of his career trying to tear you down. Marcus absorbed this. I didn't mean to create problems for you, sir. You didn't create problems. You solved them. Reeves created his own problems by being overpriced and underqualified. Sterling leaned forward. But I want you to understand what you're walking into. This company has a lot of politics, a lot of people who've been here for years waiting for their turn to move up. When I made you a director, I jumped you over a dozen people who thought they were next in line. I understand. Do you? Because some of those people are going to make your life difficult. They're going to question every decision you make, scrutinize every piece of work you produce, look for any excuse to prove that I made a mistake in hiring you. Let them. I'm not afraid of scrutiny. Sterling smiled. Good. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. He stood up and walked to the window. Marcus, I didn't hire you just because you fixed our system. I hired you because of what I saw in that lobby. You walked into a room full of people who had rejected you, who had dismissed you as unqualified, and you offered to help anyway. That takes character. That takes integrity. Those are things I can't teach. Technical skills I can develop. Character I cannot. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. I'm about to throw you into the deep end. Sterling turned back to face him. The Whitmore deal. The $200 million contract we almost lost on Friday. It's been rescheduled for this Thursday, 4 days from now, and I want you to lead the technical presentation. Marcus felt his heart skip. Me? Sir, I've been here for 2 hours. Exactly. You're fresh. You're not tainted by the politics and the bureaucracy. Whitmore is a straight shooter. He respects people who can deliver results, not people who can deliver PowerPoints. I want you to show him what you showed me on Friday, that you can solve problems quickly and efficiently without all the corporate nonsense. What if I'm not ready? Then get ready. You have 4 days. I'll give you full access to all the project documentation and you can pull anyone you need from the technical teams. But the presentation is yours. Sink or swim. Marcus took a deep breath. This was either an incredible opportunity or a setup for spectacular failure. Maybe both. I'll do it, sir. I knew you would. Sterling walked back to his desk and picked up a folder. This is everything you need to know about the Whitmore project. Study it. Learn it. Live it. If you have questions, my door is always open. But I'm warning you, there are people in this building who want you to fail. Don't give them the satisfaction. Marcus took the folder. It was thick, heavy with documents and reports. One more thing, Sterling said as Marcus headed for the door. I met with Mrs. Crawford this morning. I told her that she would be reporting to you from now on. Marcus stopped. Reporting to me. She was the one who rejected you based on your personal situation. I thought it would be appropriate for her to see firsthand what she almost cost this company. Sterling's expression was unreadable. Is that going to be a problem? Marcus thought about Mrs. Crawford. The dismissive tone, the condescending advice, the assumption that a single black father couldn't possibly meet the demands of a corporate job. No, sir, it won't be a problem. Good, because I expect you to treat her fairly despite what happened. If she does her job well, I expect you to acknowledge it. If she doesn't, I expect you to hold her accountable. But no grudges, no revenge. That's not how we do things here. I understand. Then welcome aboard, Director Johnson. Let's see what you can do. Marcus left Sterling's office with the folder tucked under his arm and a head full of competing thoughts. 4 days to prepare for a $200 million presentation. A rival consultant spreading rumors about sabotage. Resentful colleagues waiting for him to fail. And now Mrs. Crawford, the woman who had dismissed him, reporting directly to him. This was nothing like he'd imagined. He found his new office on the 25th floor. It was smaller than Sterling's, but still impressive, a corner space with windows on 2 sides, a large desk, and a small conference table. Someone had already set up his computer and placed a welcome basket on the desk. Marcus sat down in his new chair and looked out the window. The city spread out before him, a maze of buildings and streets and people going about their lives. Somewhere out there, Lily was in school, probably telling everyone about her daddy's new job. Somewhere out there, Mrs. Chen was going about her day, probably worrying about him. He pulled out his phone and sent a quick text to Mrs. Chen. "Made it through the first hour. Wish me luck." The reply came almost immediately. "You don't need luck. You have skill. Now go show them what you're made of." Marcus smiled and put the phone away. He opened the Whitmore folder and began to read. 3 hours later, he was still reading when someone knocked on his door. "Come in." The door opened and Mrs. Crawford stepped inside. She looked different than she had on Friday, smaller, somehow less sure of herself. She was holding a tablet to her chest like a shield. "Mr. Johnson, Mr. Sterling told me I should report to you." "That's what I understand. Please sit down." Mrs. Crawford sat in one of the chairs across from his desk. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "I suppose you're enjoying this," she finally said. "Enjoying what?" "This. Me sitting here having to take orders from you, after what I said on Friday." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Mrs. Crawford, I don't enjoy seeing anyone uncomfortable, and I meant what I said in the lobby. I don't hold grudges. What happened on Friday is in the past. You expect me to believe that. I expect you to believe whatever you want. But I'm telling you the truth. I didn't take this job to prove anyone wrong or get revenge on anyone. I took it because I have a daughter to support and because I'm good at what I do." Mrs. Crawford was quiet for a moment. "I have a daughter too. She's 23. When she was young, I was just like you, trying to balance career and family, trying to prove that I could do both. It was hard. Harder than I ever expected. What happened? I chose career. Every time there was a conflict, I chose work over family. I missed recitals, birthday parties, school plays. I told myself it was temporary, that once I got established, things would be different." She laughed bitterly. "But it was never temporary. It just became who I was. And by the time I realized what I'd lost, my daughter barely knew me." Marcus didn't know what to say. This wasn't the Mrs. Crawford he'd met on Friday, the cold, judgmental hiring manager who'd dismissed him with barely concealed contempt. "When I saw your resume," she continued, "and you mentioned being a single father, I thought I was doing you a favor by rejecting you. I thought I was saving you from making the same mistakes I did. I told myself that someone in your situation couldn't possibly succeed here, that I was being realistic instead of cruel." "But that wasn't your decision to make," Marcus said quietly. "No, it wasn't." Mrs. Crawford met his eyes. "I was wrong, Mr. Johnson, not just about your qualifications, but about everything. I looked at you and saw my own failures, and instead of recognizing what you could do, I projected my own limitations onto you. That's very honest of you. It's the least I can do." She stood up. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know that I'll do my job to the best of my ability. If you need anything for the Whitmore presentation, or anything else, I'm here to help." Marcus stood up too and extended his hand. "Then let's start fresh. Clean slate. Whatever happened before, we leave it in the past." Mrs. Crawford stared at his hand for a moment. Then she shook it. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson." "Marcus. Call me Marcus." "Thank you, Marcus." She managed a small smile. "And for what it's worth, I hope you knock it out of the park on Thursday. I really do." After she left, Marcus sat back down and stared at the Whitmore folder. Conversation with Mrs. Crawford had shaken something loose inside him, a reminder that people were complicated. That the same person who hurt you could also be struggling with their own pain. He thought about Lily's question from that morning. What if the people at your job are mean to you again? Maybe some of them would be. Maybe Victor Reeves would keep spreading rumors and resentful colleagues would keep looking for ways to undermine him. But maybe some of them, like Mrs. Crawford, just needed a chance to see things differently. He couldn't control how other people acted. He could only control how he responded. His phone buzzed. A text from Lily sent from Mrs. Chen's phone. Hi, Daddy. How is your first day? I told Tommy Reeves that you're a director now, and he didn't believe me. Can you take a picture of your office so I can show him? Love you. Marcus laughed and took a photo of his office, making sure to capture the window view and the welcome basket. He sent it back with a message. Here's my office. Tell Tommy I said hi. Love you too, baby. Be home tonight. The reply came instantly. Wow, that's so cool. You're the best daddy ever. Marcus saved the message and got back to work. He had 4 days to prepare for the biggest presentation of his life. 4 days to prove that Sterling's faith in him wasn't misplaced. 4 days to show everyone, the skeptics, the doubters, the people who thought he didn't belong, exactly what he was capable of. He opened the folder and started reading again. The next 3 days were a blur of preparation. Marcus arrived at the office at 7 each morning and didn't leave until 8 at night. He studied every aspect of the Whitmore project, the technical specifications, the client requirements, the competitive landscape. He met with engineers, analysts, and project managers, absorbing their knowledge and synthesizing it into a coherent presentation. True to her word, Mrs. Crawford was invaluable. She knew the history of the Whitmore relationship, the personalities involved, the sensitive topics to avoid. She prepared briefing documents, arranged meetings, and ran interference with the political factions that were still trying to undermine Marcus. Henderson from sales is spreading rumors that you're going to bomb the presentation, she told him on Wednesday afternoon. He's been telling everyone that Sterling made a mistake and that you're going to embarrass the company. Let him spread rumors. I'll let my work speak for itself. That's mature of you. I don't have time for petty drama. I've got a daughter waiting for me at home every night. The sooner I finish here, the sooner I can see her. Mrs. Crawford smiled. You're a good father, Marcus. Lily is lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one. On Wednesday night, Marcus stayed late to do a final run-through of his presentation. The office was quiet, most employees having gone home hours ago. He stood in the empty conference room where the meeting would take place, practicing his talking points, anticipating questions, rehearsing his answers. His phone buzzed. A video call from Mrs. Chen's phone. He answered, and Lily's face filled the screen. Daddy, why are you still at work? It's almost bedtime. I know, baby. I'm sorry. I have a big presentation tomorrow and I want to make sure I'm ready. Are you nervous? A little bit. Are you ever nervous before a test at school? Sometimes. But Mrs. Patterson says that being nervous just means you care about doing well. That's very wise. Your teacher sounds smart. She is. Daddy, I made you something for good luck tomorrow. Mrs. Chen helped me. The camera shook as Lily ran to get something. A moment later, she was back holding up a piece of paper. It was another drawing, Marcus standing at a podium surrounded by people clapping. At the bottom, in careful letters, she'd written, My daddy is the best director in the world. Marcus felt his throat tighten. That's beautiful, Lily. I love it. Mrs. Chen says you should put it in your pocket like you did with the other one, for good luck. I'll do that, first thing tomorrow. Promise. I promise. Lily yawned. Daddy, when you're done being a director, will you still have time to play with me? I will always have time for you, Lily, no matter what. Being a director doesn't change that. Okay. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, baby. Now go to bed. I'll see you tomorrow night and I'll tell you all about how the presentation went. Okay. Good night. Good night, Lily. The call ended, and Marcus stood alone in the empty conference room. He looked at the darkened screen at the reflection of his own face staring back at him. Tomorrow he would walk into this room and face some of the most powerful people in the industry. He would stand before them and prove that he belonged here, that his skills and experience were worth every penny of his salary. He would vindicate Sterling's faith in him and silence the doubters once and for all. But more than that, he would show Lily that her faith in him had always been justified, that her daddy really could save the day. Marcus gathered his materials and headed home. Tomorrow was the biggest day of his professional life. He was ready. Thursday morning broke gray and cold, the kind of morning that felt like the world was holding its breath. Marcus was already awake when his alarm went off at 5, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind running through every possible scenario for the day ahead. He got up and went to Lily's room. She was still asleep, her stuffed rabbit tucked under her chin, her breathing slow and peaceful. On her nightstand, next to Sarah's photo, was the good luck drawing she'd made for him. He picked it up carefully, folded it, and slipped it into his jacket pocket. "I won't let you down," he whispered to his sleeping daughter. "I promise." He made breakfast, showered, and dressed in his best suit, the same one he'd worn to his interview last Friday. But now it felt different. It felt like armor. Mrs. Chen arrived at 6:30 earlier than usual. "I wanted to see you before you left," she said. "How do you feel?" "Terrified," Marcus admitted. "Good. That means you care." She straightened his tie and brushed lint off his shoulder. "You're going to be wonderful, Marcus. I know it." "What if I'm not? What if I freeze up there or forget everything or—" "Then you'll recover and keep going. That's what you do. That's what you've always done." Mrs. Chen took his hands in hers. "Do you remember what you told me after Sarah died when you didn't know how you were going to raise Lily alone?" Marcus shook his head. "You said, 'I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway because she needs me.' That's who you are, Marcus. Someone who does impossible things because the people he loves are counting on him." Marcus hugged her tightly. "Thank you. For everything. I couldn't have made it through these past months without you." "Nonsense. You would have found a way. You always do." She pulled back and smiled. "Now go. Show them what Marcus Johnson is made of." The ride to next-gen technologies felt longer than usual. Marcus sat in the back of the car watching the city wake up around him, trying to calm his racing heart. In his pocket, Lily's drawing pressed against his chest like a talisman. He arrived at the office at 7:30, 2.5 hours before the presentation. The building was quiet, most employees not yet arrived. Marcus went straight to his office and began his final preparations. At 8 o'clock, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You don't belong here. Everyone knows it. Do yourself a favor and quit before you embarrass yourself." Marcus stared at the message. His first instinct was to delete it to pretend it didn't exist. But something stopped him. Instead, he saved the number and put the phone away. Let them play their games. He had work to do. At 9 o'clock, Mrs. Crawford knocked on his door. "The Whitmore team just arrived. They're being shown to the executive lounge for coffee. Sterling wants to know if you're ready." "I'm ready." "Marcus." She hesitated. "There's something you should know. Henderson has been making calls all morning. He's trying to get people to skip the presentation to make it look like nobody supports you." "How many has he convinced?" "A few, maybe 5 or 6 from the senior team." "That's fine. I don't need a crowd. I just need the people who matter." Mrs. Crawford nodded slowly. "You're different than I expected." "How so?" "I thought you'd be angry, vindictive. When I found out about Henderson's campaign, I assumed you'd want to retaliate." "What would be the point? Henderson is scared. He's been here for 15 years, and suddenly someone new comes in and gets the position he thought he deserved. I understand that fear. I felt it myself." "That's very generous of you." "It's not generosity. It's strategy. If I waste energy fighting Henderson, I have less energy for the things that actually matter, like this presentation, like proving that Sterling made the right choice. Mrs. Crawford smiled. You're going to do great, Marcus. I believe that now. Thank you. That means more than you know. At 9:30, Marcus made his way to the executive conference room. His materials were already set up, the presentation loaded, the handouts distributed, the technology tested. Everything was in place. Sterling was waiting outside the door. How are you feeling? Ready, sir? Good. Whitmore is tough, but fair. He respects competence and hates bullshit. Give him straight answers, don't oversell, and you'll be fine. Any last advice? Sterling thought for a moment. Yeah. Remember why you're here. Not for me, not for the company, but for that little girl waiting for you at home. Channel that. Let it drive you. Marcus nodded. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when we close the deal. The doors opened, and Marcus walked into the conference room. The Whitmore team was already seated, 7 people in expensive suits, tablets and laptops open in front of them. At the head of the table sat a man in his 60s with silver hair and sharp blue eyes. This had to be Charles Whitmore himself. Sterling made the introductions. Charles, this is Marcus Johnson, our new Director of Systems Architecture. He'll be leading today's presentation. Whitmore looked Marcus up and down, his expression unreadable. You're the one who fixed the system crash last week. Yes, sir. In 3 minutes, I heard. 2 minutes and 47 seconds, actually. A flicker of something crossed Whitmore's face. Amusement, respect, Marcus couldn't tell. All right, Mr. Johnson, you've got my attention. Let's see what you've got. Marcus took his position at the front of the room. He looked out at the faces watching him, some curious, some skeptical, some openly hostile. In the back row, he spotted Henderson Arms, crossed a smug expression on his face. He thought about Lily, about the drawing in his pocket, about everything he'd been through to get to this moment. Then he began. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to waste your time with fancy graphics or corporate jargon. You're here because you have a problem, and you need to know if NextGen can solve it. So let me cut to the chase. He clicked to the first slide, a simple diagram showing Whitmore's current infrastructure and its vulnerabilities. Your systems are outdated. Not obsolete, but close. You've been patching and upgrading for years, but the fundamental architecture hasn't changed since 2015. That worked fine when you were a regional player, but now you're expanding globally and your infrastructure can't keep up. Whitmore leaned forward. Go on. You have 3 options. Option 1, keep patching. It's cheap in the short term, but you'll be facing a catastrophic failure within 18 months. Not a possibility, a certainty. Your systems are running on borrowed time. How can you be certain? Because I've seen this pattern before. At my previous company, we had a similar situation. We kept patching instead of rebuilding, and one day everything crashed. We lost 3 weeks of data and nearly went bankrupt. One of Whitmore's executives spoke up. That's anecdotal evidence. Our situation might be different. It might be, but I've analyzed your systems and I can show you exactly where the failure points are. Marcus clicked to the next slide, a detailed breakdown of Whitmore's infrastructure with red markers indicating vulnerabilities. These 12 points are your highest risks. Any one of them could trigger a cascade failure that takes down your entire network. The room was silent. Marcus could see the Whitmore team exchanging glances. Option 2, he continued, is a complete rebuild from scratch. That would solve your problems, but it would also cost approximately $80 million and take 2 years to implement. During that time, you'd be running parallel systems, which creates its own risks. And option 3, Whitmore asked. Option 3 is what I'm proposing. A strategic migration that addresses your most critical vulnerabilities first, then gradually transitions the rest of your infrastructure over 18 months. Total cost, approximately $45 million. And you stay operational throughout the entire process. Marcus spent the next hour walking through the technical details. He answered every question directly and honestly, admitting when he didn't know something and promising to find out. He didn't oversell, didn't make promises he couldn't keep, didn't hide behind jargon or corporate speak. When he finished, Whitmore was quiet for a long moment. "Mr. Johnson, I've sat through a lot of these presentations. Most of them are filled with buzzwords and empty promises. Yours is the first one that's actually told me the truth about my own company." "Thank you, sir. I have one more question. Last week your company had a major system failure, the same kind of failure you're warning us about. Why should I trust that you can protect my company when you couldn't protect your own?" Marcus had been expecting this question. "You're right, sir. We did have a failure, and it happened because someone made a mistake. They set an error handling protocol incorrectly, and the system didn't catch the problem until it was too late. That's exactly the kind of vulnerability I've been talking about." "So you admit your own company has the same problems you're warning us about?" "Yes, sir. The difference is, we caught our problem before it became catastrophic. We fixed it in under 5 minutes, and we've since implemented new protocols to prevent it from happening again. That failure taught us something valuable, that even the best systems can have blind spots. The question isn't whether problems will occur. The question is how quickly you can identify and solve them." Whitmore studied him. "And you're the one who fixed the problem, I understand." "I was in the right place at the right time." "That's not what I heard. I heard you weren't even an employee, that you'd been rejected for a job that morning and you came back to help anyway." Marcus felt the eyes of everyone in the room on him. This wasn't in the presentation. This was personal. "That's correct, sir." Why would you help a company that had just turned you down?" Marcus thought carefully before answering. "Because the problem needed solving, and I knew how to solve it. It wasn't about the company, or the job, or proving anyone wrong. It was about doing what I'm capable of doing, regardless of the circumstances." Whitmore nodded slowly. "That's the kind of integrity I look for in a partner." He turned to Sterling. "Richard, I came here today expecting to be disappointed. Instead, I'm impressed. Your new director knows his stuff, and more importantly, he's honest about it." "Does that mean we have a deal?" Sterling asked. Whitmore smiled. "Let's talk numbers." The next hour was a blur of negotiations. Sterling took the lead on the business terms, with Marcus providing technical clarifications when needed. By the time Whitmore's team stood up to leave, the framework of a $200 million contract had been agreed upon. Whitmore shook Marcus's hand at the door. "Mr. Johnson, you've got a gift. Don't let this company waste it." "Thank you, sir. I don't intend to." After the Whitmore team left, the conference room erupted. Sterling was grinning from ear to ear, shaking hands with everyone in sight. Mrs. Crawford hugged Marcus tightly, then stepped back, embarrassed by her own display of emotion. "You did it," she said. "You actually did it. We did it. I couldn't have prepared without your help." Henderson was nowhere to be seen. He'd slipped out sometime during the presentation, probably when it became clear that his prediction of failure wasn't going to materialize. Sterling pulled Marcus aside. "I knew I made the right choice. From the moment I saw you sit down at that terminal last Friday, I knew. Thank you for giving me the chance, sir. You earned the chance. Don't ever forget that." Sterling clapped him on the shoulder. "Take the rest of the day off. Go home to your daughter. Celebrate." "Are you sure there's still paperwork?" "The paperwork can wait. Some things are more important." Marcus nodded. "Thank you, sir. For everything." He gathered his things and headed for the elevator. As the doors closed, he pulled out his phone and called Mrs. Chen. "Marcus, how did it go?" "We got the contract. $200 million. There was a shriek on the other end of the line, followed by rapid Chinese that Marcus didn't understand, but knew was celebratory. "I knew it. I knew you could do it. Wait until Lily hears. Don't tell her yet. I want to tell her myself. Can you pick her up from school? I'll meet you at home. Of course. Hurry home, Marcus. Your daughter has been watching the clock all day. Marcus took a car home, watching the city pass by outside the window. Everything looked different now, brighter, fuller, more alive. The weight that had been pressing on his chest for months was finally lifting. When he arrived at his apartment building, he took the stairs 2 at a time. He could hear Lily's voice before he even reached the door, chattering excitedly to Mrs. Chen about something that had happened at school. He opened the door. "Daddy!" Lily launched herself at him, wrapping her arms around his waist. Marcus lifted her up and held her close, breathing in the familiar smell of her hair. "How did it go? Did you do the presentation? Did they like it? Did you use my picture for good luck?" "Slow down, slow down." Marcus set her down and knelt to her level. "Yes, I did the presentation. Yes, they liked it. And yes, I had your picture in my pocket the whole time. Did it work? Did you win?" "We got the contract, baby, the big one, $200 million. Lily's eyes went wide. "Is that a lot?" "It's a whole lot." "Are you going to be rich now?" Marcus laughed. "We're going to be comfortable. We're going to be able to pay all our bills and buy the things we need, and maybe even take a vacation sometime." "A vacation like to Disney World?" "Maybe. Someday." Lily threw her arms around him again. "I'm so proud of you, Daddy." Those 5 words hit Marcus harder than anything else that had happened that day. Harder than Whitmore's praise, harder than Sterling's gratitude, harder than the $200 million contract. His daughter was proud of him. "I'm proud of you too, Lily, for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself." Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway, wiping her eyes. "Stop it, both of you. You're going to make me cry." "Too late," Marcus said, noticing the tears on her cheeks. "I'm just so happy. After everything you've been through, Marcus. You deserve this. We all deserve this. You've been carrying us for months, Mrs. Chen. I don't know how I can ever repay you." "Repay me nonsense, your family." She waved her hand dismissively. "Now enough crying. This is a celebration. I'm going to make dinner. A real celebration dinner with all of Lily's favorites." "Can we have macaroni and cheese?" Lily asked. "And chicken fingers and chocolate cake?" "You can have whatever you want tonight, baby," Marcus said. "Whatever you want." While Mrs. Chen cooked, Marcus sat on the floor with Lily and listened to her tell him about her day. Tommy Reeves had seen the photo of Marcus's office and had been forced to admit that Lily's daddy really was a director. Her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, had used the word perseverance again in class, and Lily had raised her hand to tell everyone about the flower growing through the sidewalk. "She said I was very perceptive," Lily reported proudly. "That means I notice things." "You do notice things. You're the most perceptive 7-year-old I know." "Daddy, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Now that you have your job, are you going to be happy again, like before when Mommy was here?" Marcus felt his heart clench. He'd thought he'd hidden his grief and despair from Lily, but she'd seen everything. She'd been watching him suffer for months, worrying about him, waiting for the father she remembered to come back. "Baby, I want you to understand something. The happiness I felt when Mommy was here, that was a special kind of happiness. And part of me will always be sad that she's gone. But that doesn't mean I can't be happy in other ways." "Like what?" "Like being happy that I have you. Like being happy that we have Mrs. Chen. Like being happy that I found a job where I can use my skills to help people." He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Happiness isn't just one thing, Lily. It's lots of things all mixed together. And even when some of those things are sad, the happy parts can still shine through." Lily thought about this. "Like when it rains, but the sun is still out, and you get a rainbow." Exactly like that. Our lives have had a lot of rain lately, but the sun is starting to come out again, and maybe if we're lucky we'll see some rainbows. "I'd like that," Lily said softly. "I miss Mommy. But I'm glad you're my daddy. I'm glad you're my daughter. The gladdest I've ever been about anything. They had dinner together, all three of them, around the small kitchen table, eating macaroni and cheese and chicken fingers and chocolate cake. Lily talked non-stop about school and her friends and her plans for the weekend. Mrs. Chen told stories about her childhood in China, about the struggles her family had faced, and the way they'd overcome them. Marcus mostly listened, content to be surrounded by the people he loved. After dinner, Mrs. Chen went home, and Marcus helped Lily with her bath and got her ready for bed. As he tucked her in, she reached for his hand. "Daddy, will you stay until I fall asleep?" "Of course, baby." He sat on the edge of her bed, holding her hand in the darkness. Through the window, the city lights twinkled like earthbound stars. "Daddy." "Yeah." "Remember when you said that people make bad decisions because they're scared?" "I remember." "I think people also make good decisions because they're brave, like you. You were scared about the job and the presentation, but you did it anyway. That's brave." Marcus squeezed her hand. "You know what, I think you're right. Mrs. Patterson says that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing it anyway. Mrs. Patterson is a very smart lady." "I know, that's what I said." Lily yawned. "Daddy, I'm glad we're a team." "Me too, baby. The best team in the world. Team Johnson." Team Johnson. Forever. Within minutes, Lily was asleep, her breathing slow and steady. Marcus sat there for a while longer, watching her sleep, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. 1 week ago, he'd been a desperate man at the end of his rope. 17 rejections, empty bank account, no prospects, no hope, nothing but a daughter who believed in him, and a neighbor who refused to let him give up. Now he was a director at one of the biggest tech companies in the city. He'd just helped close a $200 million deal. He had a salary, benefits, a future. Everything he'd been fighting for, everything he'd dreamed of during those dark months of rejection and despair. But as he sat there in the darkness watching his daughter sleep, Marcus realized that the job and the money and the success weren't really what mattered. They were important, they would keep Lily fed and clothed and safe, but they weren't the point. The point was this moment, this feeling, knowing that he'd kept his promise to his daughter, that he'd proven worthy of her faith in him. That was the real victory. He stood up quietly and walked to the living room. On the mantel, Sarah's photo smiled at him from its frame. "I did it," he whispered. "I don't know if you can hear me wherever you are, but I wanted you to know. We're going to be okay. Lily's going to be okay. I'm going to make sure of it." He touched the frame gently, then turned and went to his bedroom. Tomorrow, there would be more challenges, more obstacles, more people trying to tear him down or hold him back. That was the nature of life. It never stopped testing you, never let you rest for long. But Marcus Johnson had learned something important over the past week. He'd learned that the people who tried to break you didn't get to decide your worth. He'd learned that rejection wasn't the end of the story. Sometimes it was just the beginning. He'd learned that the things that made you different, your background, your family, your struggles, could also be the things that made you strong. Most importantly, he'd learned that when a 7-year-old girl draws a picture of you as a superhero and writes, "My daddy saves the day," at the bottom, you move heaven and earth to prove her right. He lay down in bed and closed his eyes. Sleep came easily for the first time in months. In the next room, Lily dreamed peaceful dreams, her good luck drawing pinned to the wall above her bed. On the nightstand, Sarah's photo kept watch over her daughter. And in apartments and houses across the city, other single parents lay awake wondering how they were going to make it. Other job seekers rehearsed their interview answers for the 100th time. Other dreamers clung to hope in the face of impossible odds. To all of them, Marcus Johnson's story was proof of what was possible. Not because he was special, not because he was lucky, but because he refused to let the people who rejected him define his worth. Because he kept walking into buildings where people looked down on him, kept reaching for opportunities that seemed out of grasp, kept believing that his skills and his character mattered more than the labels others tried to put on him. Because in the end, the man they said wasn't qualified turned out to be the only one who could save the day. And that was a truth no one could ever take away from him. Not the doubters, not the critics, not the ones who looked at a black single father in a cheap suit and saw someone who didn't belong. Marcus Johnson belonged exactly where he was, and he had earned every inch of it.